Makes me feel awkward saying that stuff. Probably the most important modern day bit of advice for anyone thinking about going into academia, any university subjects, is that there are just some subjects that aren't worth getting yourself in loads of debt for. Now that is a modern day academic problem. Universities know that if they can sell you on the idea of getting this particular qualification under the promise of being, more well paid or having a better lifestyle, that you're more likely to separate with a lot of money. And unfortunately, I'm seeing loads and loads of people getting themselves into debt for qualifications that quite literally get them nowhere. And universities know this, but they're almost doing nothing to stop it. It is a supply and demand thing. If they think they can sell you a particular course, they will. They don't necessarily care about what you do at the other end. And that is unfortunately the reality we find ourselves in at the moment. But do not worry. There are people out there to help. And one thing I came across recently was the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. Now, they have a fantastic website. They can help you do loads of different things, including getting loan forgiveness, which would be fantastic, getting you a repayment plan that you can actually afford, and also just sort of like help you consolidate any loans that you have, and also, importantly, help you dispute a certain loan. Now, university education can get very, very expensive. And if you've got any issues, I would reach out to these people because it seems that they are really there to help you. In a nutshell, don't get yourself in loads of debt for a qualification that will never help you. Do your research well before looking at the university marketing team's efforts to try to take your money. In my experience, being fulfilled, being happy, being content, all of that means that you have to suffer. There's no doubt that during undergraduate, your master's, your PhD, further research, there are things that you just have to suffer through. You do have to, however, suffer in the right way. If you suffer for something you don't care about, we call that stress. Stress arises in academia when you're putting yourself under pressure for something you don't necessarily see the point of at the end. The opposite side to that is stress that is productive towards a goal that you want to achieve. And we call that quite often passion. I don't like that word, but it's the most commonly used one. Following a passion means that you have got an end goal in mind. You are doing something you like and you're willing to suffer through it to get to that result. And that is a huge distinction I think we need to make when we're thinking about what we want to do in academia, whether it be undergraduate or postgraduate or whatever. It's about making sure that you're willing to suffer through the trials and tribulations of that degree to get to the other end. Otherwise, it's unnecessary stress, and that is something that I see people put themselves through because it's like they're choosing a degree because they think they want to do it rather than being sure that, this is something they want to do, or they're trying to impress people. They're doing doctorates, they're doing medical degrees or really high level, really hardcore qualifications just because they want to impress people or get a certain amount of kudos from your family, from your parents, from whatever. And unfortunately, that can lead to stress. So ask yourself, what are you actually willing to suffer for, and then go into that field? Because if you're not willing to suffer for it, then it could be just a whole lot of pain for no reason. In my experience, the best way to enjoy academia is to take full personal responsibility for the results. A lot of the time, at least I found in the past, that I would often sort of blame my results or my sort of dissatisfaction on the outside world too much. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some horrible sort of groups when you're doing your PhD that you don't want to work under. There's some really horrible people that you want to kind of minimize your interaction with. But ultimately, you need to take personal responsibility for everything that happens to you in academia, because ultimately, that is what is going to dictate your success. If you can actually look at a problem and say, you know what? I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve, and that is my fault. These are the things that I've sort of like, fallen back on. And so there are the things that I need to improve on. I think that is how you get through your academic sort of journey the easiest. So it's not something we like to do. When something goes wrong, we often like to blame outside factors, whether or not it was a lecturer who didn't like you, or maybe it was like that you didn't like the way they taught you. You have to take responsibility at some point and say, you know what, I don't like the way this person is teaching me, or this is a horrible situation, but what is in my control that I can actually sort of overcome this issue? And the moment you take full personal responsibility in academia, I think is the moment when you really sort of feel free and you can sort of plow through without all of the kind of victim mentality, and it is much more positive experience for you. So take full personal responsibility right now. What are you not doing? What are you not working on? What are you sort of procrastinating on that you need to actually sort of like finish? Do it today. Take full personal responsibility. Don't look for excuses from the outside world, because ultimately it's just going to put you back and you're going to feel rubbish if you don't sort of tackle those big things. So take full personal responsibility as often as you can, and you'll find yourself completing much more quicker, being more productive, and you won't kind of be stuck in this negative mindset as much. Okay, try that. Don't be afraid to make your own decisions. No matter what stage of academia you are in, not only do you need to take full personal responsibility, but you need to not be afraid to make the decision. Make the decision whether or not to do a certain degree. Make the decision for you on whether or not you want to pursue a certain career path. Make the personal decision for you about whether or not you want to work under a certain supervisor during your PhD or follow a particular master's project. All too often, I see students do things because they feel a pressure. Now, it may be a spoken pressure, it may be a spoken expectation from a parent or a guardian, but unfortunately, it does not work in the best interest of the person who's doing the sort of like work in their PhD, master's, undergraduate, whatever it is. Whatever you're doing in academia, you need to take your own sort of like path, and you do that by making decisions based on what you want and not what anyone else wants. I know that I felt a huge pressure in my undergraduate to continue with the science kind of theme, because ultimately I was, seen as the sciencey one, and I followed that all the way through to a PhD. Now, I don't necessarily regret it, but looking back, is that something that I really wanted to do? That's hard to kind of dissect once you're this far into it, but ultimately look at what you want to do. Make decisions for you, and I think that your academic career and your academic journey will just be much more fulfilling. You may sort of risk annoying certain people that have expectations on you, but ultimately it is your path, your journey. What do you want to do? Making those decisions can feel a little bit sort of like selfish and guilty if you're going against someone who's got sort of like their own expectations on you, but ultimately in the end, it's worth it. So make your own decisions. Now, this is some advice I loved rolling my eyes at when I was a PhD student and in undergraduate. But ultimately, your studies can only be as efficient as you are. If you are feeling tired, your studies, your progress will also be sluggish. If you are not performing at your best, and I hate to say this, if you are not exercising, if you are not eating properly, your mind will not be capable of performing at its best for whatever stage of your academic journey you are in. Now, it took me until I was 33 to start exercising properly. And now I feel like some sort of cult convert who's like, oh, exercising has really changed me. But unfortunately, it has. And it's really annoying to say out loud, and I don't like it. But it is true, and I want to share that with people, is that, exercising has done more for my mental health and anything to do with my productivity than anything else before in my life. Same with eating properly. Now, I cut out a lot of sugar, I've cut out caffeine, I've cut out things that really just made me feel rubbish. I haven't touched sort of like fast food in a while. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a little bit of chocolate. I love, the occasional fast food burger from popular chains, but it is a rare treat when you are studying, you do need to look after yourself because it is you that needs to do the work. So I like to go for a run. It's not for everyone, but try to find some form of exercise that you can do at least 3 times a week. And check out this app, Meal Limes, MEA Limes. It is something that has helped improve my diet dramatically. It helps me plan meals. It helps me reduce sort of like food waste. It does all of these things. And even though I roll my eyes at people when they say this is academic advice, when in fact I'm talking about your health, it's something that people don't want to hear, but it's so true. So unfortunately, YouTube, that is some academic advice that means looking after yourself. I know. I sound like one of those horrible self-motivational health speakers, but maybe that's the end of it. That's the end of it. No more. Back to PhD content. Makes me feel awkward saying that stuff. So there we have it. There is the advice that you need to hear, but you don't want to hear. I would have rolled my eyes at that so much. You would have heard them rolling back into my head if I had seen this at any stage during my academic journey. But it's now out there for you to take as you will. Let me know in the comments what you would add. And also, you've got 2 ways to interact with me. First of all, you can sign up to my free newsletter at andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter. There, you'll get exclusive content. You'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks. And secondly, go check out academiainsider.com. That is my project where I've got my ebooks, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide, and my Insider Forum. There's also a blog there now as well. And yeah, that's it. So I'll see you in the next video.